All
This
right.
is going to be great.
All right. Hello and welcome to the Idiot Book Nook. My name is Blazewing. My pronouns are they them.
My name is My name is Lady Punnet. My pronouns are primarily she, her. Sometimes they, them. Today is a she, they kind of day.
And I'm
Critter,
Critter
stop laughing
Shy.
at me.
I'm I'm sorry.
Come on, critter, spit it out.
So I'm Critter Shy. My pronouns are she, her, they, them. Today's she, her day.
Excellent. So, I'm going to address the elephant in the room because normally we have another individual here with us, Blue Dragon Lady. Blue Dragon Lady has had to step away for a bit in order to work on some real life things. Is still technically a host of the podcast. We absolutely love her. We absolutely consider her such. But unfortunately for the moment, will not be making an appearance until life things have been gotten under control. Which is a shame, and we will miss her.
She'll be back.
For those of you curious about what's going on with Lady Punnet here, I do believe spicy ramen was the case with that, so this is going to be fun. Also,
I was peer pressured into drinking the broth. All of the broth.
it was my fault. Completely my fault.
Exactly. I blame you.
As you should.
If you'd like to follow us on social media, you can do so at linktr.ee/idiotbooknook. You'll be able to find links to our YouTube, to the podcast, to the Twitch, all of our individual socials, and you'll be able to find out what we're doing on the net during our own personal time and whatnot. Up to and including any links we want to include on our own personal link trees. Also,
Link tweet.
you what?
Link tweet.
Yep. You'll have to forgive me. You'll have to forgive me, but I seem to have lost chapter 2 of Fame Has Its Price. I didn't quite catch it before Twitch deleted the VOD, so that lies on me. So you guys, we're going to be doing things a little bit differently today. We're going to be getting a quick sum up of what happened in chapter 2, and then we're going to be getting on with chapter 3. We did have like a quite intense discussion for chapter 2, I think. We tore chapter 2 like the fuck apart. But unfortunately that is now considered a lost episode.
To never be seen again.
Which isn't bad considering it's actually our first lost episode.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Since we've been at this for 3 years, I agree. Yeah.
So, I guess without further ado, for our first lost episode summary, we can jump into our summary, and I'm going to start it off with last time on the Idiot Book Nook.
Last time on the Idiot Book Nook, we went through chapter 2 of Fame Has Its Prices by Jack Townson. It starts off with basically our main character being rudely awakened by their very abusive drunk of a father, who blames them for getting fired, even though it's not completely their fault because their boss is a bitch. It now goes through the whole thing. We're introduced to not only the father, but also Bradley. I think the character's name is Bradley. Bradley's brother. And we're told that the mother passed away from an illness and the father can't work due to reasons, which I believe our discussions was possibly due to a neurological disorder that they acquired. I forget which one it was for sure, but basically they're not able to work. Bradley was the only one with an income because the brother is a drug dealer. And we have strong suspicions that the drug dealer brother is the reason why the sister is a junkie. And Bradley has a lot of guilt behind that because they weren't able to save their sister from that, even though the mother asked him point blank to look out for his sister on his deathbed. What else? The dad and Bradley get into an argument where the brother stops it. Bradley has to keep reminding himself that it's not their dad's fault completely, because it turns out the father has early onset dementia, which is sad but doesn't excuse the behavior. And then he leaves the house, leaves the house to be away from like all the things, and that's where we left off on chapter 2.
Excellent. With that recap having been done, as is with this book, there is one more piece that I have to go over, and that is our trigger warnings, because there are trigger warnings for this book. Before you enjoy your reading experience of the Vampire Jack Townson Fame Has Its Price, please be aware of the following trigger warnings: rape, moments of discrimination, graphic violence, and grooming. Quote, "As someone who has had their power taken from them, I believe in the importance of consent in all things. However, to shy away from these topics is not to make them go away, but to be blind to them." This brings us to Chapter 3, A Fame Has Its Price by the Vampire Jack Townson. A city without sleep. As I left the small shamble of the home I called mine, dusk began to take hold. The golden sphere tucked behind the clouds and into its slumber. The walk to Main Street would take me about a half hour. I deliberated, kicking a cursory pebble. I wasn't feeling the local hub. Not tonight. I needed something new, something more alive. Manhattan. An atmosphere of electricity and light, buildings taller than castles, and the angriest yet most creative people in the world gather to the metropolis looming over my backyard. I could be biased. We New Yorkers truly do carry our ego on our shoulders, especially when it comes to pride for our loud and obnoxious city. A simple walk wouldn't cut it tonight. I needed to get some real space. I called myself a car with what money I had left on my debit card. There wasn't much after monthly bills, but it was enough. 40 minutes later, and after the most boring conversation ever with the driver about the failing of cryptocurrencies that I barely understood, I was in the city. The bastard had been wafting cigarette smoke in my face the entire time, and as I stumbled from the back seat, my lungs ached for the balmy air. Every step down the filthy tar-speckled pavement clashed with the polish of my work shoes. There was no doubt Manhattan was disgusting. Alleys were littered with trash and the fluids of vagrants, yet its boroughs still held a sort of magic somehow. They say if you could make it in New York, you could make it anywhere. But I think if a person looked hard enough, the opportunity could be seen lurking around any of its seedy corners. It was a melting pot of people, a place of supreme justice, yet steeped in crime, of both the lucky and the downtrodden, of starving artists and inflated businessmen. What a place. It was dangerous, of course. Every corner hid some sort of secret, as if at any moment some masked mugger could spring from the darkness and claim your life. As I made my way through Midtown, my attention was drawn to the flashing lights of a solitary police car. Its tires hugged the curb as it blocked off a narrow alley and a portion of the sidewalk. The car shielded onlookers from something. I edged a bit closer. 2 officers stood over a fallen figure, a young man sprawled in a heap on the filthy blacktop just beyond the walkway. Intrigued, I paused and observed. Others soon joined me, forming a crowd that eagerly pressed up on their toes to better witness the disturbing scene. Blood. It stained the side of a small fajita place, like a vicious wound on its cheek. The body on the ground was drenched in its own crimson pool, the result of the angry end of what was undoubtedly a blade. Paramedics started to arrive. In stunned silence, I listened to the conversations of those that gathered around me.
Could it have been a mugger? Maybe a drug deal gone wrong?
Muttered one onlooker.
He probably had it coming. Look at all those tattoos.
Croaked an older woman.
I'm just glad it wasn't me.
Whimpered a man in his early 20s.
Who cares? Get out of the way. You're blocking the sidewalk.
Snapped a man in a suit. More exchanges like these bubbled up from the crowd, the energy about the street buzzing with more and more chaos. I stood there feeling nothing. No horror at the sight of blood pouring from an open gut, no contempt for the callousness of those around me, and no sorrow for the family that would grieve this unfortunate soul. Nothing. I was numb. What did that say about me? A heavy sigh escaped my throat and dissipated into the smog-filled air. I watched a bit longer as EMTs attempted to lift this man from where he lay, scarlet staining their hands. The same deadness radiated through my cold bones, and I realized that it was time to go. I started on again, considering how often something like that happened here. Just another body in the sea of countless others, another extinguished candle in the mausoleum of life. What was happening to me? Had I become so joyless, so shattered, that not even death could rattle me or evoke the slightest emotional response? Had the weight of my own burdens crushed me to the point where, instead of feeling, I simply observed? Fuck. Perhaps my own apathy and self-pity had finally sucked me under and drowned me. As I hurried down the slicked city block, neon lights above me seemed to dance in the dark atmosphere. Despite being so filled with light, Manhattan exuded overwhelming darkness. Maybe I shouldn't even go home. Maybe this was the place for me. A forest of skyscrapers devoid of emotion, yet with the streaks of color only some would appreciate. A place so empty, yet so full. My insides cast outward. A crack of thunder echoed through the sky, and lightning slashed across the overcast heavens, disrupting my melancholy idea. The sky grew darker, yet brighter, simultaneously. I opened my mouth to curse when the air filled with marble-sized raindrops, soaking my now useless work attire. Panicking, I ran, not out of fear of a potential mugger or the presence of a lifeless body on the street, nor from the suffocating claustrophobia of the crowded sidewalk. No, I ran from another bill, the idea of having to pay for these damned shoes. Each step I took scattered the rain, splashing my work clothes with murky water. As my shoes filled with the vile liquid, I noted the soggy squish added to each stride. I needed cover, so I darted under the awning of the first coffee shop I spotted. I pressed my palms against the closed glass door and pushed, but it didn't budge. I pushed harder, frustration building, as I clenched my teeth. Knocking on the glass, I hoped one of the patrons would open it for me. That was when she appeared. A beautiful young woman with strawberry hair. I felt a surge of excitement as I stumbled back from her beauty. She was coming to my aid, but to my surprise, she pushed the door open in my direction, pointing out the obvious sign indicating that I should have pulled it.
Pull. Don't push,
she said, her finger gesturing towards the sign. I flushed with embarrassment. There went my chance. As I entered the coffee shop, I expected her to retreat to her coffee and forget about me. However, she stood there for a moment, observing.
Rainy day, isn't it?
She remarked, her hand assisting me in holding the door open. A small smile played at her eyes. I was stunned, amazed that this beautiful woman was taking the time to talk to me, even about something as mundane as the weather. I cleared my throat, trying to maintain composure as my heart raced. Yeah, it's crazy out there. I swore I saw a cat hit the pavement, but then I remembered we're in New York, so it was a rat more likely. I started to sweat, but my attempt at a joke worked, eliciting a delightful burst of laughter from her. Her smile was captivating, and I wouldn't mind being consumed by it.
They do get pretty big here, I've noticed.
She continued to laugh.
Be careful out there.
Our eyes met again briefly, and in that fleeting moment, something passed between us. But then her expression shifted, as if she had remembered something important. She offered me another smile, one that was a bit flatter than the first, before her feet carried her away, reaching her table, she glanced back at me, her freckled cheeks pulling up once more as she seemed to deliberate. Maybe I wasn't as lost as I initially believed. I returned her gesture, watching as she turned to a man who had been sitting there, waiting. A companion, I presumed. He was slightly shorter than me and appeared uncomfortable, casting a dagger-like glare at the redhead. His gaze then shifted to me, and I could sense his immediate aggression. His beady eyes bore into mine from beneath his shaven head until her hand rose to his cheek in a calming manner, just above his carefully maintained 5 o'clock shadow. Was he trying to appear rugged? What a tool. As I continued deeper into the coffee shop, my mind still preoccupied with the missed opportunity, I swiftly moved over a puddle on the tile. Suddenly everything seemed to spin, and I braced myself for the impending embarrassment of falling flat on the floor. I imagined the laughter that would follow such a calamity. After all, it had been that kind of day. But instead, arms wrapped around me from behind, catching me before I could make a complete fool of myself.
Whoa, careful there.
A voice came from behind, securely holding me against a broad frame as my feet desperately sought traction. I let out a sigh of relief, realizing that at least it wouldn't ruin this suit just yet.
James?
The voice inquired with a hint of recognition.
James!
The voice behind me roared with confidence, and a peal of booming laughter ensued as my saviors celebrated.
Holy shit! It's been what? 6 years? Still falling all over yourself, I see.
With the help of the mysterious stranger, I regained an upright position, my gaze shifting to the side to see if the beautiful redhead had noticed. But by then, the man she was with had taken a stance, blocking her view of me. Idiot. With another heavy sigh, I turned to express my gratitude to the stranger. Hey, thanks. It's been a lousy day. And it would have gotten way, way worse if you hadn't... I paused mid-sentence as I turned fully to face my rescuer. Chris? I exclaimed, my eyes wide with disbelief. There he stood, blonde hair, blue eyes, looking at me like he came straight out of a eugenics program. My old friend from my hometown. We had been inseparable. Best friends bound at the hip since childhood. I stared at his more professional appearance, my gaze falling across his built form under his gray dinner jacket and pressed slacks.
Seriously? Has been that long? You're looking at me like I died and came back to life. I just moved to the city.
He chuckled, while I remained fixed on him as if he was a guardian angel or a specter come back to haunt me.
Come on.
He hummed, gripping my arm firmly.
You look like you could use a coffee.
I muttered an affirmative under my breath and agreed. Coffee sounded like an amazing idea, and I had nowhere else to be or wanted to be. I followed, studying his elevated appearance as he led the way. It felt odd being in the presence of a man whom I had trusted more than anyone else, the one with whom I confided every secret and dark desire. It seemed like fate brought him back to me during this most consequential moment. I believed he was there to save me, but little did I know. Sliding into a booth, our rain-soaked suits clinging to the laminate, mine a representation of an impoverished life, and his a symbol of fortune and success. My curls stuck tightly to my face, resembling octopus arms attempting to drown an old pirate ship, while his hair was golden and slicked back, perfectly suited for the weather.
So,
His blue eyes locked onto mine, causing my heart to skip a beat.
how's home life? Are you still taking care of the riffraff in your family, or have you finally managed to get out of that situation?
I exhaled. Memories of our past conversations flooding back, the tear-filled venting sessions on the steps of the dirty village coffeehouse where I poured my heart out to him. It's been the same. Everything is the same. Don't let the bargain bin suit fool you. I'm still in the same shitty situation you left me in, I said, my smile laced with defeat. The truth was, Chris had abandoned me, left me in the place he once promised we would escape together. His responding smile was cursory and didn't reach his eyes.
Looks good on you nonetheless. And how about your sister, Bradley? Is your old man still around?
What should have been a casual catch-up between friends felt more like a conversation with an absent parent. I barely contained my spite as I responded. You know, they're all just as shitty as usual. And what about you? Living the dream, huh? I mean, fuck, you're glowing like a goddamn angel in this miserable place, I snorted. Nice suit, by the way. Even my venomous words seemed to barely scratch the surface of his composure.
Thanks. It's Alejandro. Cost a bit more, but
He paused, his face momentarily dropping, and then leaned in closer.
I actually have this amazing job now, and the pay is just...
He whistled, speaking to me as if he was about to sell me a car. Must be nice, I groaned, slumping back into the booth and folding my arms.
Listen.
He started, his tone softening. I know... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I know we said we were going to get out of there together, but sometimes life doesn't work out that way. It's not so simple. I can't be responsible for another grown man, you know. We were friends, not in a relationship, so I hope maybe we can start fresh. It's been 6 years, and
He exhaled deeply.
It's been a lonely time out here. I'm really happy I bumped into you.
His confession made me feel like an ass. He had valid points. I couldn't expect him to literally carry me on his back and take me along on his journey to success. Maybe I'd been too expectant. Fine. You're right. I'm being... Fuck, I'm sorry. I fumbled, remorse flooding my gut. My day has been a nightmare. I woke up late, had to deal with my dad threatening me, got fired from my job, and... It's been a shitty time. Chris's eyes filled with sympathy as he watched me.
Damn, man. I had no idea things were... Alright, listen.
He leaned closer, assuming his former drug dealer pose.
You're still acting, right? Or modeling, at least? Look at you. No matter where you are in life, you always look like a damn statue from Roman Colosseum. Why not? Bank on that. Get some work in that field.
I returned. I've tried. It just never works out. I can't remember the lines, or I'm just too exotic for what they're looking for. Nothing ever seems to stick. Give me 1 second. I have to close my window. Sorry about that. His blue eyes left me at a table for a moment, scanning the surroundings, as if his next words were some sort of secret.
Have you ever heard of Alexander Lemon?
My amber eyes squinted at the name. It did ring a bell. Yeah, actually. Can't place where I've heard the name, but it does sound familiar, I answered cautiously. Leaning even closer across the table, his face just inches from mine, I couldn't help but match his proximity. Two grown men leaning into one another during a thunderstorm in the city. Probably looked a little romantic. Not that I found the idea uncomfortable.
If you've ever seen any big budget films from Hollywood or otherwise, Lamont's most likely had a hand in it. He's a savant, a genius. He has an incredible eye for talent, knows just who to cast and where. I kind of rub elbows with people in the industry. I know him, sort of, not directly. You know what I mean?
My interest peaked, renewed hope replacing the pain bouncing around my hollow ribs. Are you saying you can set something up for me to meet this guy? Chris shook his head with vigor.
No, but I can get you an addition. There's this big project he's working on, and he's looking for actors. I don't know the details, but it could be a major opportunity. Lots of money, fame, fortune, women.
And apparently a bird chirping in the background.
God damn it, bird!
The word freedom slipped from my lips, carried by a fading exhale, and Chris nodded in agreement.
Exactly. No more Dannon jobs, no more asshole father or brother, just success and hard work.
He explained. I couldn't contain my excitement, bouncing in my seat slightly. All right, I'll audition. Just point me in the right direction. A wry smile graced Chris's chiseled features.
Yeah? Perfect. He has a venue a few blocks up called the Préportant. Let me send a few texts. We'll get you a spot.
I nearly leapt from my seat. How soon?
Tonight, I'm sure. I know he's been in a rush to fill the role.
Chris mumbled, his fingers flying across the small device in his palm. But then, a certain promise I had made surfaced in my memory. Wait a minute. I have dinner with my sister. I promised Chloe I'd be back to... I was cut off as Chris abruptly stopped his rapid tapping.
Hey, James.
Chris sighed through his words as he glared pointedly at me. His blonde brows furrowed. He cleared his throat.
I know it's been a long time and everything, but this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. You've taken care of your sister the entire time I've known you, and...
And? I snapped, confused by why that made me so defensive.
And it's time for you to choose yourself, bud.
Chris continued.
You've done everything you can. The question is pretty simple. Is it worth risking a massive opportunity just for a 10,000th dinner with your little sister? I mean...
At that moment, I realized how much time I had spent taking care of everyone else and neglecting myself. Was it really so bleak? Had I chosen a life of mediocrity just to keep my sister happy while putting my own happiness on hold? Could I have a moment? I need to step outside.
Take your time. I'll come out when I got some answers.
Chris said. I left the small booth where two of us had forgotten to order any coffee at all and made my way to the glass door. In my nervousness, I pushed instead of pulled, but managed to slip out nonetheless. As I stepped outside, a lumbering figure collided with me without warning. Despite his shorter stature, he nearly knocked me to the ground as he pushed past. The red-headed girl from earlier rushed along behind him.
I'm so sorry. Are you okay?
She halted, offering a hand down to me. Her small mouth pulled to the side with concern. I gave the girl a swift nod. I'm fine, don't worry. I offered her a reassuring smile before collecting myself on the sidewalk, my hands finding leverage on the wall to keep myself from tasting the wet asphalt beneath me. As I regained my composure, my eyes drifted to her partner, who casually left her behind as he entered the crosswalk. He seems lovely, I blurted out. I couldn't help it. The girl released a labored breath.
He can be difficult sometimes. I really am so sorry.
She began, but I interjected a bit more loudly than I should have. James. My name is James. The girl's cheeks grew rosier, and her hands raised to hide her smile.
It was nice meeting you, James. My name is...
Annie, hurry the fuck up.
Her angry partner's voice boomed in the distance. The girl visibly flinched as if struck by a lightning bolt.
I have to go. It was really nice meeting you.
She called, her pale hand reaching to push back her flaming curls behind her ear.
I am so sorry. Just...
And there she went, away from the door and off of the sidewalk, following her miserable jailer into the rainy labyrinth of concrete and chaos. I looked after the girl with the flaming hair, watching her figure fade. It was a pleasure to even watch her disappear into the distance. The rain subsided. Wonderful. I had been on time to get drenched, stuck in this soppy, pathetic suit for what was potentially the biggest audition of my life. My fingers trembled as the phone rested in my palm. I knew how upset Chloe would be, and I wished that somehow I could be in two places at once, even if there was only more of me. Choosing the contact with the adorable picture of my apple-faced sister, a deep sense of dread washed over me.
This is Chloe Donovan. I can't come to the phone right now. Please leave your message after the beep.
Her voicemail greeted me. Hey, Songbird. So, I've got good news and bad news. The good news is that I've got this huge opportunity, an audition that could actually change everything for us. The bad news is that I won't be able to make it home for dinner with you. I know things have been crazy lately, and I've been in a funk, but I promise everything is going to get better. I miss you, Chloe. Love you, little sister. As the beep of the disconnected call sounded, the door behind me opened once more. Chris, with a wide smile on his face, offered me an umbrella in the rain.
I've got a time slot. Ready for the biggest night of your life?
He asked. And this brings us to the end of Chapter 3 of Fame Has Its Price by the Vampire Jack Townson. If you'd like to follow us on social media, you can do so at linktr.ee/idiotbooknook, where you'll be able to find links to all of our podcast stuff, our Twitch, our YouTube, all of our individual socials. We hope you've enjoyed following along this episode, and we'll see you next episode. For this episode of the Idiot Book Nook, I'm Blazewing.
I'm Lady Punnet.
And I'm Crittershy.
And we'll see you next episode.